afternoon, everyone, and I'd like to add to Keith's welcome and thank you for participating today. I'm Andy Bowden. I'm the Chief of the Communications, Planning, and Rulemaking Branch at NRC's Waste Confidence Director. The agenda for today's meeting is I plan to provide a brief overview of the background of Waste Confidence, some of the key aspects of the draft generic environmental impact statement, the proposed rule, and the methods for providing comment on the documents. Then we'll get to the public comment portion, or the heart of the meeting today. So what is Waste Confidence? Waste Confidence accomplishes two things. The draft generic environmental impact statement for Waste Confidence is a generic environmental analysis that satisfies part of the Commission's National Environmental Policy Act obligations for reactor licensing and relicensing, and the licensing and relicensing of spent fuel storage facilities. The draft environmental impact statement also serves as the regulatory basis to support a rulemaking. The Waste Confidence proposed rule generically addresses the environmental impacts of continued storage and would contain a determination concerning the feasibility of safe storage and the time frame for repository availability. The generic environmental impact statement and proposed rule only cover the time frame after the license life for reactor operation. The proposed rule on Waste Confidence does not, however, license any particular site or facility, and it does not allow for long-term storage of spent nuclear fuel at any site. NRC has a long, rich history with Waste Confidence, which was originally adopted by the Commission in 1984. Since then, the rule has been updated, most recently in 2010. In 2012, the Court of Appeals for the DC Circuit vacated the 2010 rulemaking. The Court identified three deficiencies with the Commission's environmental analysis that was done to support the 2010 Waste Confidence rulemaking. The Court found that the analysis didn't evaluate the environmental effects of failing to secure permanent disposal. The Court also directed the Commission to provide a forward-looking assessment of spent fuel pool leaks and the environmental consequences of spent fuel pool fires. The Court did find that either a generic environmental assessment and an associated finding of no significant impacts, or a generic environmental impact statement would be an acceptable means to address the issues associated with Waste Confidence. In response, the Commission directed the staff to prepare an environmental impact statement to look at these generic issues with the possibility of issuing an updated Waste Confidence rule. Finally, there are two things I'd like for you to remember. The first is that Waste Confidence is just a small part of the NRC's overall environmental analysis for reactor and storage facility licensing and relicensing. And then the second thing is that Waste Confidence rule does not license any facility or authorize storage after the expiration of a facility's license. The draft generic environmental impact statement describes the impacts of continuing to store spent nuclear fuel beyond the license life for operation of a reactor. This includes the impacts of storing the spent nuclear fuel at reactor sites in spent fuel pools and at independent spent fuel storage installations. Storage could occur either at reactor sites or away from reactor sites. The generic environmental impact statement describes why the NRC is revisiting Waste Confidence, the alternatives that have been considered, how the environmental impacts were evaluated, what facilities are covered, and the environmental impacts of continued storage at reactor sites and away from reactor sites. It also contains information on the costs of the alternatives to the rulemaking, cumulative impacts, and information on the feasibility of a repository and the feasibility of safe storage of spent fuel. The draft generic environmental impact statement assessed impacts of continued storage of nuclear fuel for 3 time frames based on when a repository would become available. The short-term time frame is 60 years after a reactor's license life. The long-term time frame is 100 years beyond that. so a total of 160 years beyond the reactor's license life. An indefinite scenario that was looked at is this scenario when no repository becomes available. The generic environmental impact statement serves as the regulatory basis for the proposed rule. The proposed rule would provide that the environmental impacts of continued storage are generically addressed and will not be revisited in future site-specific licensing actions. Unless the NRC discovers something about the site that would make the application of the conclusions in the generic environmental impact statement inappropriate. The proposed rule would revise the Nuclear Regulatory Commission's regulations. Specifically, the citation is Title 10 of the Code of Federal Regulations, Sections 51.23. In addition to the statement on generically addressing the environmental impacts, the proposed rule would state that the analysis supports the Commission's determination that it is feasible to safely store spent nuclear fuel following license length of operation of the reactor. It would also state that it is feasible to have a mine geologic repository within 60 years following the license life for operation of the reactor. We are specifically seeking comment on whether these last two aspects should be removed from the rule. The comment period ends on November 27th, 2013. To be considered, comments must be received by that date. Mailed comments must be postmarked by November 27th. All comments, whether submitted in writing or provided orally, are considered equally. Comments on the generic environmental impact statement and proposed rule may be submitted by several methods. First, we are seeking public comments at this meeting in person or by the phone. Any comments that you provide orally at this meeting are being transcribed and will be considered part of the record. If you have written comments, you may leave them with NRC staff located at the registration table. It will make sure that those comments are added to the docket. You may also email, fax, or mail your comments to the NRC. You may also provide written comments using the federal electronic rulemaking website, www.regulations.gov. This concludes the NRC's presentation, and thank you for your attention. Jim, thank you.
Previously, we do have time for some questions from those of you here in the audience or on the phones, all aimed at making sure that you know what the process is for the finalization of the environmental impact statement, anything on what's going to happen at this meeting today, or questions about the structure or organization of the environmental impact statement. All of this is to try to help you to comment more effectively on the environmental impact statement. And with that, is there anybody in the room who has a question on any of those topics at this point?
Fire in the GIS. It's not clear whether the various causes of such an accident were considered cumulatively, or whether the staff only looked at what they deemed the most likely cause. And I wonder if some of you addressed that.
Yes. Paul Michel. Spent fuel pool fires were addressed in Appendix F of the document. And in that appendix, we evaluated the weighted, probability weighted consequence of the spent fuel pool fire. So we looked at the consequence of it, which we actually found to be significant and destabilizing. But we actually also then looked at the probability of that, which we found to be small. So the resultant risk from, or probability weighted, spent fuel pool fire, consequence of spent fuel pool fire was small. And that's our finding in the generic environmental impact statement. We did not take a cumulative look at that impact.
Okay. And we have to get you on the record, and we're generally not going to do follow-ups, but go ahead, Tim.
Sure. So I guess my question is, in assessing the probability the entire range of potential causes, or did you only look at one likely cause?
We look loss of water, and that was so no matter what the event was that brought it, we looked at a catastrophic loss of water.
Okay, thank you for that question, Tim. Thank you, Paul. Let's go to a question right here, and then we're going to go.
I'd like to find out all of the possibilities. You talk about generic, but generic is a very ambiguous term. It's hard to really wrap your mind around generic. So I realize most fuels are oxides, uranium oxide or mixed plutonium uranium oxide. But there are reactor fuels that are not oxides. How do you deal with those? And the likelihood of a catastrophic fire in those that are uranium metal or plutonium metal are much greater than those that are in oxide fuels.
Okay, thank you. This question obviously relates to the type of fuel that was considered in the environmental impact statement, and if we could just address that briefly and where that analysis might be found. Paul, is that yours also?
Paul Michalek again. In terms of the fuel that was addressed in the generic environmental impact statement, we considered fuel from both pressurized and boiling water reactors. Pretty much, I think I can say that if it's licensed by the NRC and it's at a commercial site, it is covered within the generic environmental impact statement. So in terms of the fuel that was addressed in the generic environmental impact statement.
So does that only include oxide fuels?
And we need to get everybody on the transcript, so if you do have a follow-up, if you could just wait till the microphone comes over. Okay, one follow-up.
I just wanted to know about oxide fuels. I guess all commercial reactors are oxide fuels, so this may not be a non-question for the NRC.
I'm thinking about the fuel in Fort St. Frayne. I'm not sure if that's an oxide fuel. That is considered in our analysis, but off the top of my head, I can't remember whether that's an oxide fuel.
And are those the different types of fuels that are considered, that they all specifically identified in the environmental impact statement?
Exactly, that would be, I think Chapter 2 provides more of a detailed discussion of what exactly is in, and actually a little bit of a discussion of what's out.
Okay, thank you very much, Paul. Thank you, sir. And Anna, could you put Leslie March on the phone for a question?
Okay, Leslie, your line is now open.
Hi, I'm sorry, I thought I was pushing in the beginning to speak later on, so I don't have a question right now.
Okay, thanks, Leslie. We'll look forward to hearing you later on. Anybody else on the phones? Anybody else in the room that has a question before we go to comment? Okay, great. Thank you all. And we're going to start in the room, and then we'll go to the phones. And we're going to go to Jean Solt first, then Janet Phelan-Kotra, and Kevin Camps, and Ellen Ginsberg. So, Jean, are you here?